Hi guys, and I'm just putting this in as a little bit of a header before you start watching the main vlog. And I just want to say the vlog isn't necessarily one of the best that we've done. Purely and simply, the weather was absolutely appalling yesterday, and I wasn't able to video as much as I wanted to. So you'll have to forgive us on that. But yeah, hopefully you'll understand. It is very difficult to do a proper sort of walk around when it's absolutely teeming it down with rain. So enjoy what there is. It was a good afternoon out. I think you'll get a good idea of what we did with the vlog that we've done. So hope you enjoy, guys. And yeah, we'll see you again. Hi guys, and welcome to another Jay's Family day out. We are currently, I don't know if you can see that over the top of me, but we're currently at the Cuttiss Ark and at Greenwich University. We are going on a river cruise to see the Christmas lights, and then a fish and chips supper, and then I understand that we're going to be driving Oxford Street and Regent Street to see the Christmas lights. So it should be good fun. Obviously I will take you with us as much as we can, but yeah, so it's going to be quite a quick pace, I think, because it's now 3:30. I think the ferry, we've got to be back at the ferry in 20 minutes, and then we can be getting back to the Trumpington Park and Ride in Cambridge, I think at 9 o'clock. So that means we'll be leaving London around about sort of 7:30-ish, I suppose, give or take. So yeah, it's going to be quite whistle stop, but yeah, good fun. Come along with us. Cheers, guys. Okay, so we've arrived in South London, and here we are by the Cuttiss Ark. We are following the crowds because hopefully we're all going in the right direction to get our boat. Thank you, James. So yeah, this is the Cuttiss Ark. What isn't going to help is the rain that is now beginning to come down, because this camera is not waterproof. I bought the wrong camera. Just so you know, I'm here. James is here. Say hi, James. And then we've got Mum and Julia behind us. We assume we're all going the right way. I'm following the geezer with the Christmas suit on up there because he seems to know where the hell we're going. And that is the front of the Cuttiss Ark there. Now, for you Marvel fans out there, you may remember, I think it was in the second one, where Thor had his final battle, and it was here, in this area, just over there it was. A little bit of facts and figures for you. Okay, so whilst we're waiting for our ferry, which will take us to Westminster Bridge, we are just loitering around the Greenwich ferry area. Nice old-fashioned Ferris wheel over there. We've got a Christmas tree beyond that as well. We did drive past the Woolwich Market, and it looked like it was heaving, absolutely heaving. So yeah, good luck with people doing that. I'll just take you up to see the view from the Thames. here we go. So that's looking, I think, into towards the city, and then obviously the other way, I believe, is going towards Dartford Bridge, I guess, that direction. I'm not sure how far along we are, but you can see what the weather's like today, guys, because you can't even see the top of some of these buildings in front. So it is a pretty grotty, wet day. Hey ho, make the best of it, eh? Okay, so we are now leaving the visitor centre here at Greenwich. Got the cannon here, just there. Statue there. I haven't looked what these statues are, guys, so forgive me. Some sort of monument here. And we are now making our way towards the ferry. Now, I'm hoping we're going to be able to get on the ferry or be sheltered, because it is coming down reasonably hard now, this weather. So join us when we get on the ferry.
It was one of the first buildings developed over there. It was the first residential one anyway. And the architect who designed it said he was going to design a building which represented a championship of the Port South.
So there's not going to be much talking on this one, guys, because you're probably not going to hear me over the noise of everyone and the boat, but just enjoy the London City Christmas Light River Cruise tour. There should be some commentary on here, so you might hear that anyway. In the meantime, just enjoy.
And the red on the side. As you can see, we're now departing from here. To do so by law, we have to give you some safety information. This is a means to allow you to let you know the vessel you're travelling on is all fully licensed in the Maritime Coast Guard. On the roof of the vessel, we carry inflatable life rafts. The airfields are situated all around the vessel, as are the life jackets and the parts for the International Life Jacket Site. Throughout the cruise, we have constant contact with all the navigation authorities and all the boats that travel down on the river Thames. In the very unlikely event of an emergency, please remain calm and we follow the instructions given over the public system. Well, that's the end of the safety information. There's a link to the large.
I just noticed because it came up on my screen. It came up on my screen that it was due tomorrow.
Past the bar, you will find the toilets. If you wish to go to either of them, please by all means do so. But after that, please do it. Now, as we make our way upstream, I know a few people have heard of Coventry. There is a large group with a one-way trip, and a few people have asked if we've pointed new places. Well, I will do so. I'm not a professional guide though, so if I do make any mistakes, please just bear with me. Now, there is a question that people always ask us here on the River Thames, and that is, how big is it? Now, this is a very difficult question. So, the tide of the river. The tide is always going out, and it changes by the minute. But I'll give you an example of how deep it can be in certain places. If you look to the left, we're just passing 3 yellow buoys. A bit further up, there's another 3. Now, this is the Greenwich Ships. On the lowest low tides we ever have here on the Thames, there is a guaranteed 45 foot of water. Now this is what's known as a natural deep water berth. It never ever has to be dredged out. The reason being, as we go past, there's an opening in the river wall. Now this is Deptford Creek. Deptford Creek runs into the River Ravensbourne. And the River Ravensbourne is a natural dividing line between the county of Surrey and the county of Kent. Now, on the ebb tide, when the tide goes out to sea, it rushes out that creek and round the natural bend in the river, and it basically scours out a deep hole. If you go down the river about a quarter of a mile on the opposite side, it's ever so shallow. As I say, that just gives you some indication of how deep the Thames could be. Now, coming up on the right, the yellow brick buildings. These stand on the old site of Burwell's Wharf. It was actually over there at Burwell's Wharf where a very famous ship was once built, a ship called the Great Eastern. It was designed by Isambard King Brunel. It laid the first ever transatlantic telephone. It was a colossal ship of its time. It weighed over 27,000 tons. And at that time, that was 4 times bigger than any ship ever built. It was so large, when it came to launching it, the riverbank wasn't built up like it is today. It was pushed into the river sideways. As it hit the water, it actually created such a wave that it drowned 12 of the spectators on the opposite side. It then got stuck in the Thames mud, and it sat there for 3.5 months until we had the spring equinox tides. The equinox tides, they're the best tides of the year. But Burwell's Wharf, that ran right the way along here on the right hand side. Now, coming up on the left hand side, this is Convoy's Wharf. Now, this was the last of the working warehouses this far up the river. If you had done this trip about 25 years ago, all up over there would have been a massive ship. And they come from the Scandinavian countries, and they were loaded up with reels of newsprint. Convoy's Wharf, that belonged to a man called Rupert Murdoch. He's the man who owns the Sun and the News, the World newspaper. Well, the paper doesn't come this far up the Thames anymore. It now goes to the Tilbury Docks in Essex. That site has laid empty, as I say, for nearly 25 years. The reason being, it had a bit like a listed building. They say this is the last place we could actually dock a ship this far up the river. But they've said as of next year, they're going to start developing. I'm surprised it took 25 years. If we look along there to the left, along the river bank, very difficult to see where it's carved. But there's a small opening with a flight of stairs coming into the river and a gateway at the top. These are the Royal Stairs of Deptford. It was actually on them stairs where Queen Elizabeth I knighted Sir Francis Drake for being the first ever Englishman to navigate the world. He sailed around the world in his ship, the Golden Hind. He then sailed it back up the Thames. He anchored it up where that barge is. He then got rowed to the stairs. As he got to the top, she was there to knight him, Sir Francis Drake. Them stairs now guarded by a royal charter, can never ever legally be removed, and they must always be maintained. Now all the land over here on the right, this is all the old site of the London Docks. Now during the First and the Second World War, the docks were actually a prime target for the German Air Force. But they only ever managed to hit one dock which caused significant damage. During World War II, they hit the entrance to the Millwall dock, which is just coming up on the right hand side. Now you can enter the Millwall dock via the West India dock. So to save closing it down, they bricked that entrance up, then it never ever reopened. During the last 30 years or so, whilst they've been developing over there, on several occasions they've actually had to stop work and evacuate the area as they've come across First and Second World War. That's the Millwall dock entrance. Now look to the left, we have another dock entrance. This is one of the old entrances to the Surrey commercial docks. When the Surrey docks were open, they were the largest inland dock system in Europe. There was miles and miles of quayside over there. It's only that small part that remains today. They call it the South Dock Marina, where people keep their luxury yachts. The rest of it's all been filled in and built upon today, mostly housing, shopping centres. They actually call that part of land the Surrey Quay. So it's the Surrey docks on the left, the London docks over here on the right. Believe it or not, there was a time the Port of London was the busiest commercial port anywhere in the world. We had ships in and out of our docks from all around the world, carrying all manner of different cargoes. At that time, we'd have seen thousands of these things over here on the right. You see these blue things floating in the river? These are barges. They're also known as lighters. Now what would happen, the ship would go into the dock. They would put the barge outside the ship and discharge the cargo from the ship into the barge, lighting the load. The man in charge of one of these was known as a lightman. Now the only stuff we travel up and down the Thames today by tug and barge is London's household rubbish, which I think is a great shame really, when you consider we're going upstream of what was once the busiest motorway in the world, and we now use our waterways less than any other country in Europe. Now all the land over here on the right, this is known as the Isle of Dogs. It's a great big horseshoe-shaped bend in the Thames. But I guess the name the Isle of Dogs actually dates back to when the royal families lived in the royal palace of Greenwich. Back in those days there was all old marshland and a strip of water ran right the way around it to be an island. Now when the likes of Henry VIII lived in Greenwich, it was over there where he kept his hunting grounds. Now as the sailing barges would sail around that large bend in the river, as they went round the bend, the sail would start flapping. The dogs, they would run to the shore and start barking. So it got known as the Island of Dogs. Later on, it was turned into the docks over there. As I said earlier, there was the Millwall dock, there was the East India dock, and there was the West India dock. And in the docks, there was a wharf where the ships come over from the Canary Islands. The French Olsen shipping line used to bring us cargoes of fruit to the Canary Wharf. Well, over the years, the docks, they closed down, made derelict, and then all the land was brought up by two Canadian brothers called the Roanoke. They have now turned it into the main financial island. So modern design Canary Wharf, you see they're doing with a slope side and around windows. That's called Cascade. It was one of the first buildings to go over there. It was the first residential one anyway. And the architect who designed it said he was going to design a building which represented the partnership under full sail. If there's anyone on board who thinks that there's anything like a sailing ship under full sail, I think you're probably on the same dedication was when you designed it. Now, it's a very, very busy and popular part of London today, Canary Wharf. It never used to be though. In fact, it was probably only 15 years ago. It was very similar to the City of London. On a Friday night, after about 5 o'clock, well, it would pretty much close down till early on a Monday morning. Well, over there now, there's great big shopping centres, tons of hotels, all the celebrity chefs, they've all got their restaurants over there. As I say, it's a very, very busy and popular part of London, 7 days a week. In fact, it was only last week the American bank JP Morgan was putting in for permission to build the tallest tower block in the whole of Europe, and it will stand virtually 2 times the sharp if they use permission. But if we keep looking to the right, as we go past the last yellow block of apartments, well, that is pretty much where the old box ends. Then enters a part of land in East London known as Limehouse. Now, if you go back through the history books and you research Limehouse, you will actually see that was the original Chinatown. Now, if we talk about Chinatown today, people straight away say Soho, the West End of London. But this is where it all first began. Now, when the first of the Chinese come to this country, they come over on the ships and into the docks. And that's where many of them settled. There still is a very big Chinese community in Limehouse today. In fact, if anyone's ever read the old Sherlock Holmes books, do you remember him chasing the evil Moriarty from down in the dens and over his dens of trouble? Chinatown, East End. Keep looking to the right, there's an opening in the River Wall. That's the entrance to the lime kiln pond. It was actually at the end of there where they had the lime kilns, where they made the bricks to rebuild London after the Great Fire of London in 1666. Charles II was on the throne at the time, and after the Great Fire of London, he said London may no longer be built by timber, it must all be built by bricks. That's where a lot of the brickwork come from, if you read the books. Now, if we keep looking to the right, there's a group of buildings. The end one is a pub. It is called the Grapes of Limehouse. Now, that pub was actually bought by one of its neighbours. Also over there is a man called Sir Ian McKellen. Now, it's his local pub, it's up for sale, and he bought it. And when he was asked about it, he said, I'll be honest, I completely want the pub. And when I asked him what he meant, he said, I couldn't bear to see another London pub get lost. He said it was a little old independent pub, it was in the same family for generations, and it was put up for sale. He said one of the big chains wanted to buy it. He said, all the chain pubs are all exactly the same. Doesn't matter where you are in the country, they've all got the same wallpaper, all got the same carpet, all sell the same beer. And he said, I wanted to keep it as a proper old London pub. And I think that's great. There's another pub over here on the right you're passing. This is the Narrow in Limehouse. And this is one of Gordon Ramsay's gastro pubs. Now, for those of you who don't know the difference between a gastro pub and a normal pub, it's quite simple, really. It's about but keep looking to the right, see that white light over there? That's in the back garden. The warehouse on the end is Sun Hall, and that once belonged to a man called Sir David Lean, the famous film director. Now, he directed films like Bridge Over a River Kwai, Passage to India, Lawrence of Arabia. That's got everything, that building. A 40-seater cinema, tennis court, swimming pool, jacuzzi, you name it, it's got it. Passed away a few years ago now. It now belongs to an American plastic surgeon. Now, to the left-hand side, there's a building with a red crane on the outside. Difficult to see where it's dark, but up on the top it says Globe Hall. Now, you'll see many buildings that are word built from the top. People quite regularly ask us what's it mean. It actually means warehouse of riverfront. Because it's been built on the river's edge. Imagine years ago, on the high water, them barges, them lighters, They'll load them up in the docks and the ships, tow them up and down the length of the river, and put them outside the warehouse that the river fronts. But look what I've replaced them with. Look over here on the right, this red brick monstrosity. I know it looks like it's been designed by a 5-year-old Americans. It is actually a very clever design. There's over 200 apartments over there, and they all get a riverside view. More views of the river, more valuable property. But also to the right, look up above the trees on the skyline. There's a church spire. Now this is St Paul's Church in Shadwell. It was over there where a lady called Jane Randall was baptised. Now Jane Randall, she emigrated to America. In America, she met a man called Peter Jefferson. They got married. Their first child, they called him Thomas. And Thomas Jefferson actually became the 3rd ever president of the United States of America. That is the area where his mother was actually from. Now also, coming up on the right, there's a small white painted building all lit up. This is the Prospect of Whitby, the oldest registered pub on the banks of the Tyrrell Thames. Dates back to 1520. Built
I think it's going the wrong way. Over there, that's all. Same way.
It was built and opened during the reign of Henry
And so
VIII.
was Shadwell Church.
So this is the oldest registered pub on the banks of the Tyrrell Thames. But it's certainly
I
not
think it's going that way.
Now if we keep looking along here to the right, we're going to see how this part of London used to be. Metropolitan Lucre. Now, if we talk about Docklands today, people straight away think Canary Wharf or the Excelsior. But Docklands actually starts at the lower side of the town. And that's all you would have seen was old warehouses like this, either side of the river. Now, as I say folks, it's dark, you can't really see a great deal at the moment. So, I'll give you a little bit of information about the River Thames itself. Well, the River Thames is almost 300 miles long. It starts right there up in Cotswold Hills up in Cirencester, and it runs down to the estuary down the south end. Well, the last 95 miles of the Thames is timed for a place in West London called Teddington. They say that Teddington is actually made up of the words time, ending, town. So it runs down to the estuary itself. Well, we're now going on stream with the last of the outgoing tide. The tide that floods into London for 5.5 hours. It reaches a mark known as the high water mark, that will in turn and ebb back out to 7. Now the average rise and fall is anything between 18 to 20 miles. Now if you look to the River Thames, it looks like a very dirty, murky old river. The reason being it has a mud-based bottom. If you can imagine, we've constantly got a tide travelling up and down, anywhere between 3 and 6 knots. It's always churning and mud and silt up, and that's what actually gives it the dirty appearance. But the Environment Agency, they actually tell us it's the cleanest industrial river in Europe. And that's quite simple really. We have no industry left. Although saying that, there's a record amount of salmon and trout in the River Thames these days, over 180 different species of fish, and also there's an awful lot of cormorants and herons you see on the banks of the Thames, and they live off the fresh fish, so it must be pretty cool. Now look to the right, we're passing the police bit, the River Thames Police of Wapping, the oldest uniformed police force in the world. Founded back in the 15th century. by the East India Shipping Company. There were such terrible problems on this river with piracy and smuggling. East India, they were very big and powerful one time, and they were so fed up of their ships being robbed while they were in port waiting to be unloaded. It basically started out as a private security company. Later on, other companies, they started paying East India protection money to look after their ships. They then all come together and they founded the Thames River Police. And they still patrol the Thames 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, as we come around this bend, look up the river in front of us, you're going to get a lovely view of the Thames. Now, before we get to Tower Bridge, we're going to call at our first stop, which is Butler's Wharf, for the Tower of London. Now, anyone on board with a Butler's Wharf Tower Bridge ticket, you have a few minutes till we get there. But when we do get there, folks, we're going to be straight in and straight up. It's just like a bus or a train. So if you are leaving us, as you're sitting there, just take this time to have a good look around you and ensure you have all your personal. Now, folks, for the people leaving us at the tower, I do hope you've enjoyed your trip upstream on board the Sardinia. And I do hope you've enjoyed these few points and places of interest. Now, as I pointed out before I started, and I'm sure that you've all realised by now, we're not professional guides on these boats. But unfortunately, they don't employ professional guides. When you buy your ticket, you get a small leaflet with a little map, and that is your guide. Now, as a crew, we feel that's a bit of a waste of time. So we try and have these little talks. Now, we don't get paid as tour guides, and obviously we don't make a charge for this. There's a lot of people on here who haven't understood a word I've said. So what we do on here, we leave it up to you. If you have listened to the commentary, enjoyed it, and you'd like to show any appreciation for our efforts as tour guides, you can do so as you leave the boat. I will be standing by the exit in the old traditional manner with the old champagne bucket. And this is for any appreciation that you might like to share. So if you want to throw a couple of bob in the bucket, that's entirely up to you. But for those of you who don't know what a couple of bob is, it's an old English saying for £20. Money joking. Maybe you're throwing out pound coins, notes, euros, dollars. It is entirely up to you. Well, folks, if you're on the top deck, obviously you want to take your photos, but please do not stand on the top deck in the centre aisle, folks. If you stand on the top deck, the captain can't see where it's going, and obviously we can't make our way into it. So please do not stand on the top deck, but please make your way to the back of the boat. Please do not stand on the top. Now, if you're leaving us, folks, as soon as you get alongside, as I say, please make your way to it. If you're getting off, you have a lovely afternoon here at the tower. If you're staying on, I'll be back to you soon as we leave. But all that's left for me to do now is thank all of you. And that's, of course, feel very kind. Thanks so much indeed, folks. Thank you.
front of me, I can't see what's ahead of me. Please either find a seat and take to it, or make your way down the stairs. But there is no standing area on the top deck. That does include you at the front. Please take a seat. Thank you.
Almost like a hop on, hop off. Hop on, hop off. There'll be more to see once we get the other side.
And then what I think we'll do is we'll wait, we'll hang back till everyone's off and then we'll get off together. Okay, so I'll be there, just give him hands.
Folks, once again, can you please return to your seats? The vessel is underway. Again, there is strictly no standing area on the top deck. Please do take to your seats. If you do not want to sit on a red one, there's 217 dry ones down the stairs. If you're on the top deck, please be seated at all times. Thank you. Now, if you would just join us, just to let you know that we're all licensed in the Maritime Coast Guard. On the roof of the vessel, inflatable lifeguards, life readings are all around the vessel, as are the life jackets, the lots of security cards, the international life jacket. Throughout the
roof, we'll pass the contact all the navigation authorities and all the boats travelling up and down. There's a full licence bar downstairs in the saloon, past the boat front towards. If you wish to go to either of them, please by all means do so, but after that, please do remain. As we're making our upstream, I'm pointing out a few places of interest on the professional guide boat. So if I make any mistakes in the upstream, please bear with me. Well, we're just about to pass beneath the Tower Bridge. Now, Tower Bridge, it opened up back in 1894. It was actually built in the Gothic style to blend in with its surroundings. Through the bridge, coming up on the right, we have the world famous Tower of London. Now, work first commenced on the tower under the orders of William the Conqueror in 1070. He used as many things in his time: Royal Palace, a zoo, a beach, and a road. Most famously, though, the prison and the facility. It's over there today with the King, guarded closely by the King's people. Now, all around on the left-hand side, all the way from Tower Bridge to London Bridge, this is all privately owned land, and it all belongs to a member of the Queen's Army. They also like to call themselves the St Martin's Property Group. They own the building on the left, facing the skyline. We have the Shard. At the moment, the Shard is still the tallest tower property in Western Europe. It stands at 1,016 feet. Comprises of many things today. There's offices, shops, bars and restaurants, hotels, and the top of that building, well, that's the But also to the left, we have London's very own warship, the HMS Belfast. She was the largest of the light cruisers ever built for the British Royal Navy. I will say, weighs 11,500. So active service in World War II. She last fired her guns in anger for the crew. Decommissioned from the Navy in the 1970s, saved from the scrap heap and brought here by the Imperial Navy. She is now currently moored up 7 days a week to museum ship to Dublin. As we pass the Belfast, you're going to see 2 yellow brick warehouses with a glass stone roof in the middle. Originally these were refrigeration warehouses. They were nicknamed the Larder of London. Today it's called the Hayes Gallery. It's a shopping centre. Over there you can see the Christmas market, or one of the Christmas markets. If you want to take your girlfriend or wife or buy them anything nice, do yourself a favour, don't take them over. It is very nice, but it's ridiculously expensive. In front of us we have the New London Bridge. This one was opened up by Queen Elizabeth II back in 1973. The first ever London Bridge dates back to the Roman times of AD 40. Before we go through the bridge, take a look to the right hand side as we go past the gap between the next 2 buildings. You're going to see a church, the Church of St Magnus. It was designed. Behind the church, you're going to see a tall stone column with a golden top. It is Sir Christopher Wren's monument to the Great Fire of London of 1666. It is built to represent a candle. They say it was a candle which fell over in the middle of the night in a small bakery shop. And that is actually what started the Great Fire of London. Now, from the London Bridge, if we look to the left between the buildings, you're going to see the lovely Southwark Cathedral. It's in Southwark Cathedral where a man called John Harvey was baptised son of a local tradesman. He left England and went to America, where he founded the Harvard Library, which in turn became a part of Harvard University, Massachusetts USA. Also to the left, there's a small sailing ship wrecked off, the replica of Francis Drake's old ship, the Golden Hind. Francis Drake was the first Englishman to navigate the world. It's now brought up as a museum. You can pay a small fee and go on there. It's all the history of St. Francis. Do you remember the Royal Stairs of Bedford? As I say, that's the replica ship what I spoke about earlier. Now this is the Camden Street Railway Bridge. Well, that's about it really. There's no historical interest in this bridge. It's followed very closely by the Southern Road Bridge, which opened back in 1921, and it was originally built to relieve the strain of the old London. Now all the land on the left-hand side, this is known as Bankside. It is in the district of Surrey. Now in Elizabethan times, Bankside was the red light entertainment area. Over there you would have found bear baiting pits and dogfighting areas, gambling dens, circuses and taverns, houses of horizontal pleasure, all owned and licensed by the Bishop of Winchester. There was also to the left where you found all the old theatres. Entertainment wasn't allowed on the right, it's the financial hub of the city. So through the bridge, coming up on the left, the white circular building with a thatched roof, is the replica of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. Built to the dream of an American film director, Sam White. Go over there today to see an old Shakespearean play being reenacted. It would have been done back in Shakespeare's time. Also to the left of the building with a tall chimney, the old Bankside Power Station. Today, the Tate Modern Art. Or half a cow in a plastic jar, well, that is the place to go. If you want to see a real work of art, as we pass beneath Norman Foster's Millennium Footbridge, look to the right where the bridge goes between the two buildings. You'll see at one point we have a lovely fallen view of Sir Christopher Wren's masterpiece, St. Paul's Cathedral. Now it took Wren 35 years to complete. Stands 365 feet tall. It is the second largest unsupported cathedral dome in Europe. Second to that of St. Peter's in the Vatican City of Rome. The red brick building in front of the pools, the new City of London School. A young man called Daniel Radcliffe went to school there before he became Harry Potter. Well folks, we're not too far away from Westminster. When we get to Westminster here, the toilets have to be locked. If you want to go to the bar or the toilets, please go there now folks, as we are going to be locking the doors in the next 5 minutes. Now we're now approaching a group of bridges, very close to each other. The first one being the Blackfriars Railway Bridge, followed very closely by the Blackfriars Road Bridge. But as we pass through, in the middle, you're going to see all that remains from the first ever railway bridge to span the River Thames, the old St. Paul's Railway Bridge. Now this carried the first steam trains across the river for the Chatham-Dover Railway line. The top half of the bridge was removed many years ago. It couldn't take the weight of the modern trains. You could never remove these old pillars though. If you was to pull these out, you would undermine the foundations to the modern day bridge. It becomes. 28 foot bridge. Now from the bridge, coming up on the right, the building with a sloped roof, the spire in the middle, the old City of London School for Boys. Many famous people educated over there. Lord Aston Lloyd George, two of our football players. The building now belongs to J.P. Morgan, the American bank. Now on the way upstream, you may have noticed very little advertising on the banks of the river Thames, because we have very strict advertising laws. But if you look to the left, you'll see how an architect very cleverly got around these laws back in 1931, when he incorporated the product's name into the windows and tower at the top of the building. I'm sure you've all heard of Oxo, the people who make the famous gravy stock. The building no longer belongs to the Oxo company, but it is a Grade 2 listed building, can never ever legally be removed. Comprises of many things today: offices, shops, bars and restaurants, and the top is the famous Oxo Tower. Now, as we pass beneath Tower Bridge, we enter the City of London. Now, the City of London is actually one of the world's smallest capital cities. It spans only 1 square mile. So look to the right, just before that white ship on the river bank, there's a stone arch with a temple arch. As we pass this, we leave the City of London behind us, and we now enter the City of Westminster. We have just travelled right the way through that 1 square mile City of London. The large white ship is the Wellington, the floating livery hall for the Honourable Company of Past Master Mariners. To be a Master Mariner, you have to have served over 25 years. Now to the left-hand side, the building all lit up. This is the National Theatre. It has been voted by several top leading architects as being the ugliest looking building in London. Now King Charles, back when he was Prince Charles, he once said in an interview that that building looked more like the back end of a nuclear power station. I think most people would agree. It definitely looks a lot better at night time. In front of us we have the Waterloo Bridge, completed during the Second World War by the Land Army. More affectionately known here on the Thames as the Ladies' Bridge, and this is because the Land Army at that time was made up by 80% female labour. All our men were away fighting in the armed forces. It is also, though, the only bridge to ever be completed on time and on budget. I think you're really saying what a lovely job the ladies done building the Waterloo Bridge. Now all along to the left-hand side, this is known as the South Bank. The South Bank today is one of the busiest parts of it. It never used to be though. Just over 25 years ago, 26 years ago, it was horrible over there. But the entire area has been completely regenerated. The reason being is through the bridge and to the left, the next bridge. You can see already, you can't miss it for miles around, we have the London Eye. Now if you wanted to go on the London Eye when it was first opened up in the year 2000, you would have queued up over there for 4 hours and you would have paid £7. You'll be pleased to know that there are no queues to go on the London Eye today. You won't be pleased to know why though. It is now £42 for an hour. Since it opened in 2000, it has now carried nearly 70 million customers. In front of us we have the Charing Cross Railway Bridge. It also incorporates 2 pedestrian footbridges. The one the upper side, the Golden Jubilee Walkway, and the one the lower side, the new 100-foot bridge. Now as we pass beneath the bridges, if you take a look up the river, in front of us to the right, you'll get a lovely view of the Houses of Parliament and Big Ben. Now before we get there folks, we're going to call at our final stop, which is Westminster Pier. This is where everybody must leave this boat. This boat now goes out of service. So please take this time, have a good look around you, and ensure you have all your personal belongings. Please don't ruin your day by leaving. Well folks, I do hope you enjoyed your trip upstream on board the side. And I do hope you've enjoyed these few points of peace. As I said back at the tower, folks, we're not professional guides, and we do have these talks with you on a purely voluntary basis. Now, if anyone has listened to the commentary and you'd like to show any appreciation for our efforts as tour guides, you can do so as you leave the boat. I'll be standing by the exit with the orange. This is for any appreciation. But all I've been to do now is thank you for your very kind attention on the Welsh. And I do hope you will have a lovely evening here at Westminster. Please take care when you step from the boat to the coast. Let's have a lovely evening here at Westminster. And I hope you will have a lovely Christmas and a wonderful day. Thanks very much and enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Okay.
Gracias.